Town Hall number 58, and we are going strong. As always, we've got our fearless leader, Crypto Unicorn CEO and co-founder, Aron Beierschmitt, as well as our growth director, Zuri. They have some updates for everybody before the questions start, so take it away, y'all. Good morning.
Good morning. Good evening, Sparkly, technically. Good time zone.
Hello, hello.
I have a lot.
Glad to be here.
This is gonna take a hot minute. But we have so many updates to kind of discuss. So I'll kind of run through it and we'll go from there. I guess first off, excited to return to weekly town halls going forward here for a bit. It's a critical moment for our community, and it's time to kind of rally the troops and get everybody on the same page. So going forward, you can expect a weekly town hall from us. And we'll be, as we have in the past, kind of switching the start time around to kind of hit on different time zones and hopefully overlap with ones that we don't do as often. So I'm excited for that. And again, I think it lines up with this hypercritical moment for us as a community. So again, excited about the return to weekly town halls. Separate to that, I mean, it's been an absolutely amazing 30 days plus post-zygration. After 2 years of a very brutal bear market grind, we are finally beginning to see some traction play. So amazing start to that, obviously already up and above what we were on Polygon by a very significant margin. On top of that, we've seen over a quarter, we're pushing $250,000 worth of marketplace volume to date. Not every group in the space can launch and in about 30 days do $250,000 in marketplace volume. So incredible to kind of finally have our own marketplace that we can kind of continue to customize to the needs of our community, and phenomenally excited by the success of the marketplace kind of right off the jump. To date, we've burned 689,000 CU tokens. That is the total number that have been burned buying berries in the marketplace, breeding and evolution and all the other kind of burn sinks that we have across the ecosystem. If you kind of annualize that burn rate, we're looking at about 15% or so of the circulating supply being removed permanently. I do not think there's another gaming token this deflationary. So this is a critical point. Obviously, we're 1 month in post-zygration, but it's very, very exciting to see such a heavy amount of CU being burned. And it's a core part of our flywheel, right? That's the equivalent of about $95,000 worth of CU, and you can think of that as well. That just added value to the remaining tokens, right? So it's a pretty phenomenal burn metric for first month in, right, in the very, very early phases of our growth strategy. On top of that, we're over $40,000 in actual treasury revenue between LP fees as well as the secondary fees. Which of course is great because 50% of that is being used to buy back and burn CU tokens. Again, getting the flywheel of our economy spinning. So today, after Town Hall, we'll begin the buyback and burns, which will occur over a period of days, kind of starting at the beginning of the month and running until we've bought back all the tokens from 50% of the revenue from the prior month. In addition to that, we'll also be executing the burn operation. So again, as a general reminder to everyone, right, 50% of all treasury revenue going forward is used to directly purchase Crypto Unicorns tokens and burn them permanently from supply. We're really one of the few projects, certainly in GameFi. Obviously, there are some DeFi projects that have kind of turned on the fee switch or have some kind of buyback and burn mechanism, but certainly within the context of GameFi, like we are one of the few projects that actually directly pass value to our token holders. So almost every economic action that you make inside of our ecosystem goes directly to the tokens that you hold. So this is how we get our economic flywheel beginning to spin. We're going to be, as you can imagine, like hammering on this messaging very, very hard over the next days and weeks. And we really want your help to try to broadcast this as far and wide as we can. because it is a unique differentiator, and it represents, again, every single purchase action, spend sync action inside of the game is either burning um, CU or is going to buy back and burn additional tokens. So it's kind of a double whammy there. And you can imagine, again, you get enough liquidity and interest and attention, the flywheel really begins to spin and it becomes a self reciprocating thing.
And part of the dialogue here is the simplicity. Like back in the 2021 Axie days, the when burn meme was very real. And now we can kind of say there is this always on perpetual burn that's happening. Obviously, the literal burn happens in batches at the end of the month, but it's an aggregate that adds up for that burn to be possible. So the goal is that we've got a very powerful mechanism that also combos with a very easy to understand dialogue that should get just regular blockchain users excited. Ooh, deflationary token. I think of FriendPet. Very easy to explain the value prop behind that token. So just trying to equip all of you with as much ammunition as possible to give you a one sentence elevator pitch of why should I buy the CU token? That's a really great reason right there alone is the current buyback and burn mechanism. All the other stuff on top of it is just more layers of value, right?
100%. I mean, that's a key point to really zero in on. I think, I've said this before, the simplest memes have the greatest chance of propagating. So let's keep things simple and, to a certain extent, stupid simple, and just broadcast this as far and wide as possible. I think this is what a lot of developers who have not spent 2 years managing an active economy really don't understand about the challenges of dealing with that. And I really believe these tokenomics changes that the DAO voted and approved in May, are really going to help us, again, get the economic flywheel spinning. And that becomes this reciprocating growth engine for us. Obviously, a big part of growth is going to be the continued effort on the marketing side. August is another key marketing push month for us. You're going to continue to see us run large-scale awareness and exposure campaigns, both targeting land gameplay and then obviously Rainbow Rumble with its launch in August. I'm kind of viewing it as we have several more booster rockets to fire. I would say we're about 30% of the way through our marketing plan. So we're nowhere near the finish line of what we've already kind of activated. I would expect us to continue to chart nicely on DApp radar well into September. And that, again, continues to give us awareness and exposure that we have never had before in certainly in the history of the project to date. One big news announcement, if you missed it, Seed Phrase came out recently as a major CU bull and holder. Seed Phrase is obviously one of the largest Axie land holders. I believe he's still the largest Wolf Game asset holder. It's amazing to have him on board. He's certainly viewed as kind of one of the top NFT collectors in the space. So it's been great kind of building a working relationship with him. And we've got a lot of plans, specific to continuing to try to leverage the audience that he has to get our message out there. And again, it's about pairing, kind of as Andrew said, it's about pairing some of these key, easy, simple narratives with some of the largest influencers in the space. And without leaking any more alpha, because I don't want to rain on Mitch's parade, he's got 2 even larger influencers than Seed Phrase on board and ready to activate in August for us. Anything to add to that, Andrew?
Yeah, I just want to highlight that the strategy with KOLs, it definitely has some experimentation attached to it. There's undoubtedly a little bit of trial and error. The deals we negotiated with all these KOLs for all the different content and tweets and videos and all this stuff, it was kind of individualized, right? So different rates for different creators based on what they were delivering. So Mitch did a really good job trying to min-max that and make sure we weren't overpaying. For some of these influencers, we look at the outcome and go, yeah, that looks pretty botted. I don't think we really got much out of that one. Swing and a miss. And for others, we go, hey, this actually has some organic traction. We're seeing people come in and say, hey, this person sent me, or I'm holding because of this. So we're doing our best to track that. Obviously, it's not like we don't have referral codes, so it's not a perfect science, but trying to be critical and find the influencers and KOLs that actually want to play the fucking game and aren't like, it's not like pulling teeth to get them to load up the free bundle that we gave them to record content. Cairo is somebody that comes to mind where we've enjoyed working with him, and the folks that seem a little bit more earnest and organic, we're trying to double down on, and obviously trying to move away from the folks that were, a lot of numbers, but didn't really deliver much in terms of conversion. It's totally a balance when it comes to, quote, vanity metrics and the funnel all the way down to when do people start purchasing unicorns and land and burning stuff in the economy. It's really important to have both. People do really care about the big, shiny numbers, even if some of them aren't as meaningful as folks think. They're still important. You need to have them. It's sort of like this first checkbox of, well, you should be able to at least do that. You also need those really big metrics that matter, the conversion rates, the stickiness, the amount of money spent. So we're very actively tracking both sides and trying to maximize on both. So when you see us tweeting at really big numbers, like we have 500K installs, and you're thinking, yeah, but how many of those people played more than one game? We hear you. We're thinking the same thing, but being loud and proud of those really big numbers is still super important. It actually does matter in aggregate, and beating the drum of that stuff over and over again does add up for people to start going from skeptic to open-minded to, shit, maybe I'm getting left behind by not owning at least a couple unicorns, or, man, Rainbow Rumble looks really fun. I should at least pick up one unicorn so that I can look cool while I'm on the racetrack. All step by step, but just want to reassure everyone that hear you loud and clear, and we're being very, very specific and cautious and strategic about, the numbers that we need to be loud about, and also internally looking at, the really crucial numbers and making sure that we are seeing spends. And as Aron mentioned, seeing 250,000 in the marketplace already it's a great checkbox. That's a really important number, and glad we're over that first hump.
Big time. Yeah, big time. It is all one large acquisition funnel, and it starts with awareness and attention. And, that means competing on the vanity metrics that every other project's been hyping, knowing that deeper in the funnel, we have insane retention, insane conversion metrics, actual paying DAO, actual revenue, right? Like if we were to take Pirate Nation's approach and count the CU burned as revenue, which is how they're displaying things currently, it'd be over 150K in total revenue in the first 30 days. And so again, right, like you're going to see us, as Andrew stated, like get really, really active in trying to broadcast all of the success that we've been having kind of post-SI. So it's phenomenal to kind of be here at this stage right before the golden bull market. Rainbow Rumble, let's talk about that for a second. Obviously, enormously excited to get that game out the door, in August. And the launch brings kind of a host of new content and features. I think the first big thing, speaking of the acquisition funnel, is free to try corns. The team has put up some of their corns, which will be used as kind of free skins for players to come in during the free to play days, weekdays. This gives people an opportunity to come in with zero friction. You can create a social login based wallet in Third Web frictionlessly, and then immediately come in and play the game without having any assets at all. This is a phenomenal, I think, acquisition tool for players. Obviously, wager weekends would require them to purchase CU, which represents a very simple but first purchase gate. I mean, this is mobile free-to-play 101. How do I get someone to purchase their first 99-cent, bundle, right? That's how we would think about things in mobile free-to-play. And so you think about coming in free to try. I'm pretty good at this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and buy some CU so I can participate in the wager weekends. In addition to that, we're crafting the leaderboard to really, really, really focus on giving people boosted points for purchasing their first unicorn, which of course gives them a unique skin inside of the game. And I'm very excited to see this. If we begin to see conversion rates similar to traditional kind of free-to-play games, I'm going to get really excited, because then we know we can continue to scale the overall ecosystem, scale awareness and attention around crypto unicorns, and we will see Rainbow Rumble as a legitimate example of the strategy of layering games on top of land gameplay. Every single farm corn that goes into Rainbow Rumble to play obviously is no longer on the farm. So It builds depth and scale into our economy, and again, spins the flywheel. In addition to free to try or free to play corns, there's new racetracks, new obstacles, so a lot more content than what y'all saw in the open beta in December. There's also player progression in terms of XP and player levels. Player profiles being integrated so you can sync your display name as we begin to get that out of just tribes and all the way into our website and Rainbow Rumble. So we're very, very much driving towards this kind of ecosystem-wide player identity and profile, which is going to be great. So, you can kind of know who you're beating or losing to, which will be a lot of fun. In addition to that, we have an esports tournament. It's probably not even the right way to describe that. It's a series of weekly qualifications that are going to give you an opportunity for a seat at the Creator Cup. There's obviously a massive leaderboard prize pool. Andrew, this thing is your baby. What do you want to tell the people? I know everyone is pumped.
I think at this point we're close enough that I'll probably just describe what we have in mind, and then obviously we'll have some detailed documentation to dive into it. In my mind, it's a really simple little esports format, but if you're not a competitive esports guy or person, then maybe this is a little more complicated than I'm giving it credit for. But really excited about these tryout unicorns, try to play, free to play, whatever you want to call it. Now we have a funnel to really capitalize on the Xi audience, the Vanguard campaign, and convert them into active players that give us liquidity while playing and a very straightforward upsell channel on, hey man, you just need one floor adult unicorn. You've got your ticket to the Rainbow Rumble ecosystem. You're good to go. So I'm just optimistic about how we have that set up compared to last time when we did Rainbow Rumble, where it was sort of, hopefully our core game players will play Rainbow Rumble. This is a totally different funnel that we have set up now. So we are doing what we're calling the Rainbow Rumble Championship Series. So it's going to run over 8 weeks. This is totally independent from the Creator Cup. So the kind of plan of attack will be game launches. We'll have a weekend and some days to play around, get our feet wet. Everybody is going to start playing Rainbow Rumble and having a lot of fun. The week after launch, we're planning on a Creator Cup that will have some number of streamers, KOL type folks that'll all compete against each other. It'll feel a little bit similar to what we did with Myrtle, Baranar, and Azarian before, where they played against community members, except we'll have more than 4 of them. Everyone's going to stream at the same time. We're going to try to make some buzz and do all that jazz. After that, this kind of championship series esports track will begin. The idea is that Monday through Friday, you guys play in either on the free days or the wager days, and there's 2 separate tracks to qualify for Saturday playoffs. One track is through the free rooms, one track is through the wager rooms. There are twice as many seats for the wager rooms as the free room that move on to the final playoffs on those Saturdays. If you perform well on those Saturday playoffs, let's say you place top 10, congratulations. You'll get playoff points, and those will track over the 8 weeks in sort of an extended leaderboard almost, if you will. And then the top 20 players in terms of playoff points at the end of the 8 weeks will be invited to the final championship. And that's going to have a 50,000 Xi prize pool. Each weekend playoff will have a 3,000 Xi prize pool as well. So really tapping into this conventional, very simple but straightforward esports psychology, which is all about fixed prizes that for the folks that can place in the top, it's totally worth their time, and really trying to get some of that competitive energy in there where obviously everyone is betting on themselves and their ability to perform, but there's only a fixed amount of slots that end up paying out the prize pool. So the goal is that we generate some engagement and hype and excitement and fandom around this Rainbow Rumble Championship Series. And we look back on it and go, wow, that ended up being a really great marketing spend, because it was really just the tournament prize pools and the weekly broadcasts, and the excitement of all that rigmarole generates something greater than the sum of its parts. So that's kind of like a high level 101 of what is esports, why did competitive gaming exist and bubble for the last 20 years. That's kind of it right there. When you can tap into something that's fun to watch, You have regular players with nameplates, something that's actually competitive, and a game like Rainbow Rumble where you can sabotage each other. It's maybe a little bit more like cycling than it is like Counter-Strike or League of Legends, in the sense that I don't know that we could really stop people from being like, hey, I'm just going to focus on knocking Aron off so that he can't win. I'm not necessarily playing to get top 3. I'm just playing to sabotage a couple of other key competitors. You know, all that psychology is at play in Rainbow Rumble. So hopefully it'll be really fun to watch, and we'll see some storylines as people qualify through these different tracks. So I know that was really a lot to digest. Don't worry, we're going to have some announcements coming out. It'll all be step by step. But the main thing is that we're going to be coming back to Saturday broadcasts on Twitch. We'll have a lot of Rainbow Rumble content. And I'm cautiously optimistic and excited to prove out this esports / competitive gaming thesis. I always say esports lightly because we're not like committing to a full esports ecosystem, but this is totally in that playbook and going to be a great competitive gaming experiment. And also just totally different from anything we've ever been able to do with the core game. You know, you can't really run a tournament like this with our standard breeding and economic gameplay. So this is it, baby. This is my wheelhouse. Let's make it shine. Really, really excited. So I say all that. Hopefully you feel better about this version 2 of Rainbow Rumble. It really is a lot different. Think of the first one as like the alpha test, the prototype. This is the full shebang. This is the big kahuna, more maps, more variety, bug fixes, all that. You know, it's a lot more battle tested than it was the first time it came out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect example. We heard cries from the community literally over years at this point of get things out early to us, let us get our hands on it, let us help y'all. And that's what the open beta in December was all about, right? And we distributed rewards and people got paid for effectively coming in and helping, not only QA, but give feedback on level design, et cetera, right? Like the portal, you can't skip the portals anymore again, right? I mean, there's so much that has been added to that based on direct community feedback that, again, it's us embracing community in the very early stages of game dev and then leveraging that in a way that actually empowers the product to be better. So enormously excited on the Rainbow Rumble front, and was surprised Zori didn't leak any of the alpha on some of the major esports teams, but I know we're saving that for announcements later. Marketplace bundles. So this is another big thing. Again, we're getting the Zygration done, which again was the largest gaming migration in the history of the crypto gaming space. Was like step 1, right? Like we're back to the starting line and we kicked off 30 days ago, right? And so we've been looking at every aspect of the funnel and trying to figure out how do we drive, not drive, but how do we smooth out the funnel, right? And make it as frictionless as possible for people to make their first purchase within our ecosystem. So a big answer to that the web team will be shipping next week are bundles. This is going to allow players to purchase 2 lands and 10 corns in 1 click. We're going to be starting with common class matched bundles and eventually, if that's successful, add rare and mythic over time. The beauty of this system is it's going to aggregate bundles based on what's already listed in the market that meets specific requirements. So it's not something that can necessarily be arbitraged because we're like setting prices. The prices will be the aggregate price of whatever the listing values of those bundles are. These bundles, to answer you, Prof, are from people, not from LG. Obviously, we have marketing corn, so if we need to provide liquidity, through, those corns that we already purchased from the community, obviously, like we will. But whether we purchase them from the community that directly is, the community is directly selling them, you guys are filling up the bundles, right? That's the beauty of this system and the fact that y'all own the assets in the economy. So on that note, please
it's basically just a marketing funnel for the existing assets that are listed, right? Like we're not creating the bundles. It's like a cart bundler that goes, oh, hey, new guy, you want a star package? Great. Let us put that together for you. You click one button, it does some magic and goes, hey, here are the cheapest star corns that match this land. Boom, check out right now. So it absolutely is a value add for everyone in the marketplace. And hopefully this will encourage you guys to keep listing floor coins, listing common lands. And our hope is that this is efficient, like a win-win-win, right? It's better for new users. you guys aren't cut out of the system, and we're just providing the platform to make that possible. And more sales, more volume. So as Aron said, we will be making multiple posts and reminders, kind of begging y'all to do your part and put liquidity in there. I know it's like, hey, I don't need the $10 from this floor corn, but those new players do need an entry point. So it is important that we keep thinking about, oh yeah, let's keep the floor healthy. You know, that's a very good thing when it comes to true floor corns and these common land.
Yeah, and the bundle purchases give us the opportunity to do things like incentivize players with loot box claims and stuff, right? You know, and we're going to run promotional campaigns and stuff on top of this. And so really trying to, you know, again, smooth out the on-ramp. And we know and have known for a long time, it's confusing to new players. Like, what do I need, right? And so fine, here is a one-stop shop page they can go to, find a bundle that they like, and then go from there. And of course, again, we'll test rare and mythic bundles over time. We might test a mega whale bundle that's like 16 lands and a bunch of corns all at once, kind of maxing out the cart, you know, and again, testing different price points. The beauty of this system too, given we control the marketplace, is we could run campaigns on, say, Facebook that link out to this bundle page and feed back purchase data to Facebook to increase the algorithm's ability to target. So again, it's all about ensuring that we have the funnel in place and the data and analytics across it to optimize and refine it. So that's another exciting thing on the marketplace front. Let's flip over to the evil side. Let's talk about shadow corns for a second. Really, our plans for shadow corns deserve their own town hall, and perhaps next week or at one of these upcoming weeklies, we can really focus in on this and maybe even do a presentation. So there's a lot of information here. I'm going to try to condense it down. I know we're approaching the 30-minute mark here. I guess it all starts with a polished pass on the Shadow Forge to reduce the time it takes to maintain your forges daily. Like, we hear you loud and clear. First off, revising the UI to itemize shadow corns and rituals into rows, preventing scroll, all the scrolling that's needed, indicating non-usable rituals without players needing to click on them. So these very basic, easy things that have been highly suggested by the community are obviously quick wins. From there, we're going to be releasing things like a logarithmic reward curve. That's going to distribute rewards more evenly. Obviously, the whale shadowcorn holders are still going to get the most rewards because that's the way it works. But it will distribute them more evenly, and we think give people more of a reason to buy their first shadowcorn. You have to understand, look at it like a funnel again, and you got to get people over that first purchase hump. If they think they need 10, 15, 20 shadowcorns to have any viability within the system, you're not necessarily going to increase the number of shadowcorn holders, which, like, foundationally, that is a goal of ours and should be a goal of everyone's within the ecosystem. On top of that, the ritual recycler. Recycle rituals to receive some of the dark marks you spent. On top of that, we'll be increasing Shadowforge levels from 20 to 30 and adding additional bonuses and kind of exciting features that are tied to that progression to really give everybody a thing to grind for that's well worth it. In addition to that, tied into that, we're going to be increasing husk storage amounts by level. So this is going to ultimately reduce the number of times per week a shadow core needs to be restaked based on the level of the forge. New ritual pools, in addition to that, are going to give players a more deterministic option for minting rituals if their forge level is high enough. So again, in that set of things, we're kind of covering some of the largest feedback and complaints, I would say, around shadow corns, and I'm very, very excited to begin pushing out these changes here in the near future. Obviously, Twilight Tactics 2.0 and a major kind of revamp of it is in progress and planned. You're going to see us lean heavily in the direction of more passive gameplay. I think what we saw with Twilight Tactics 1.0 is way too many clicks and grind with very little strategy, and even some broken strategy in places where there was this horrible incentive for Shadowcorn players to list like low tier squads, right? So they would actually be attacked by players. And so we're stripping out a lot of what didn't work and focusing more on leaning into the social strategic psyops madness that we already see in our community, that we've seen around things like the potion truce, seen around like the last tribes leaderboard. We really want to lean into the degeneracy, quite frankly, that we see amongst our community, and create high player agency and basically like shaking up and resetting regional control over the course of the event. So I think a key part of this is we're basically going to be adding a prediction market of sorts, letting y'all take bets both kind of before and during the event over like what side is ultimately going to win. And I really look forward to the insane level of degeneracy and psyops that's going to come out of our Shadowcorn holders here. I've always said Shadowcorns are kind of the chaos agents of the crypto unicorn kind of universe, and we're leaning very heavily into this. Ultimately, we kind of expect Twilight Tactics 2.0 to give us this repeatable event harness, and give us a lot of good content until the 5.x release suite in the core game, and that's when you're going to finally see Shadowcorns get integrated into tribal warfare in big ways. So lots of plans for the Shadowcorn side of our the dark side of our collection, shall I say. And anyway, very excited to take a ton of community feedback and obviously leverage that to improve the feature for everyone.
The deterministic rituals are really cool, and I think a smart way to add value to leveling up the Shadow Forge. Instead of it just leveling up endlessly and just giving you more husk value, you actually can start reaching these breakpoints of, okay, I want to have more control over when I get these different pulls. That is awesome to me. Number two, I'm like excited and scared about the betting aspect or the wagering. I think it is a really cool dynamic, though. We've seen how crazy you guys have gone with jousting potions and the amount of shenanigans that has gone back and forth between trying to have this truce and being betrayed by folks that don't want to participate in the truce. We're hoping that this is a similar sort of powder keg, and our goal is to hand it over and see how deep y'all can get in terms of levels of inception. Pretty fascinating. So I guess stay tuned for more details on that, but a totally different dynamic than what we saw in Twilight Tactics Season 1, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Again, trying to take the lessons learned from the first iteration and obviously reapply them. This is iterative, community-driven game development at its finest. All right, kind of switching gears for a second. We've been very quiet on I'll call it our phygital narrative, which is the combination of taking digital assets and items and bringing them into the physical world. Obviously, you should have seen announcements earlier this year. We were at the Toy Expo in Las Vegas, pretty much certainly the largest toy expo in the United States, and has people from all over the globe come in. Our booth was right next to the Pudgy Penguins igloo, and as I've said many times, like we're inspired by what they've done on their side, and we're fast on the heels of them. I think a major differentiator is, yes, Pudgy's does casting calls, and some of the community members whose Pudgies are chosen get a small royalty share. We will obviously be doing very similar casting calls on that front, but the major differentiator is the idea that 50% of all of the revenue that the DAO generates as a result of this is going to go back to buying and burning the CU token. Once again, every single toy sell will go to purchase CU and burn it. So where are we at? Two major notes. Obviously, I'm leaking some alpha here. One is we're working very hard and diligently to get toys in Amazon prior to the holidays, very similar to Pudgy's initial rollout, which was a stepping stone for them from, Amazon to retail and Walmart and other stores. In addition to that, we just finalized our TV series pitch with a showrunner who has gotten a number of TV shows picked up by major studios and streaming services. And we are beginning to go around and pitch every run from Netflix to DreamWorks around our IP and its potential, to win out. And we're getting great feedback. If you think about it, like unicorns are a pretty global phenomenon, and almost every culture has a unicorn myth of some sort. Unicorns are in many countries more searched than Mickey Mouse, and dare I say, beat penguins in almost every country globally. But if you think about it, no one owns kind of the unicorn brand per se, and obviously our unicorns are very unique in their own right, and because of their variety, there's appeal kind of across the aisle, both boys and girls, young and old. And we think there is a phenomenal opportunity here to do this. And again, it gives us the opportunity to put QR codes on the packaging and allow people to scan and get raffles, right? Or get directed to Rainbow Rumble to go play some free games and win a free corn. And so again, it is once more a part of the overall acquisition funnel that we continue to build, and everything again actually drives direct value to our token through buyback and burn. So not only are we fast on the heels of the Pudgy Penguins crew, who's done some trailblazing in terms of getting NFT kind of projects out into the real world, again, we have a bit of a different and I think stronger narrative with respect to our token holders, where, again, this auxiliary revenue that is not directly tied to the crypto market is going to drive direct value to our token. So expect, again, we could do a whole town hall on this, and we probably should. We've been very quiet on this front as we've, been making progress, but I'm excited to take more and more off the wraps here and talk about collaborations with, some really, really big companies in the space.
Yeah, it's easy to overpromise and underdeliver on physical stuff, and that's why we're a little bit quiet about it. But we have definitely been making progress. I can say the events team has still been very enthusiastic about how well unicorns are testing. Like, kids freaking love unicorns, and I swear this is one of the glories of Shadowcorns. We've done a little bit of like A/B testing, and they're like young male boys. A lot of them have said on anecdotal surveys, like, do you like do you like unicorns? No. Do you like shadowcorns? Yes. Do you know what a shadowcorn is? No. Why do you like it? I don't know, but it sounds cool. That's the kind of feedback I'm looking for. And obviously, we're not selling crypto to kids, but kids have parents, and there is a very natural funnel there. If a kid is into an IP and there's a lot more under the hood that's there for the adults, the thought, the thesis, the hope is that there is a funnel that exists right there. As Aron has, you could hear in the background, a youngster himself. What kids are into, parents kind of have to be into as well. And if the animated movie that your kid is watching is not painful for adults, that's actually an insane value add, because there's a lot of kids content that I'm sure Aron can attest to, very, very hard to listen to day in and day out. I don't know if you remember the Wiggles, but they were not my favorite.
God. Well, the thing that I like is the approach for the TV show is kind of a Shrek style, right? Where it is hilarious to parents, and there's a bunch of jokes that kids would never get, right? And so anyway, I'm very excited by that. Obviously, my son has been running around with a crystal unicorn prototype and a fire shadowcorn plushie prototype, and he loves them to death. And so that brings me a lot of joy just generally. Anyway, it's been exciting to see. Again, as much shit as I've gotten over the years talking about building a generational IP, that has always been the vision from day one, and it takes a lot of time. So I'm excited by the progress that we're making there, and for what the future holds. God, we still have so many updates. Andrew, quickly, we've got a jousting patch going out today. What's the TLDR for the community? I heard we had a corn go fucking wild over the past weekend.
Yes. So really quickly, high level, some of y'all might recall weeks ago when the legendary was hit, the star, I believe, he broke one of the thresholds in the formula, and we saw this like big break point where, okay, the number one corn's winning by a lot. Something kind of similar happened with the speed metric. Old Silky Oliver there has an absurd amount of speed, and it has had guardrails on it because speed gives you chance to speed burst, which gives you chance to knock out there's kind of a cap there. Something like absorption, for example, could in theory go past 100 and then stuff gets really crazy. Speed sort of has this guardrail on it. So that's a little bit why this has crept up and not been like game breaking, then all of a sudden erupted a little bit when he had some extra ammunition from the potion change. So we figured that out. We're going to have the What's New in CU coming out hopefully in an hour or two after this is done. Obviously, LG Jeff will be in Discord and can chat through some of this stuff. The high level is we need to adjust the speed down a little bit. We've reduced its impact on burst chance and knockouts, but still is going to be pretty high speed. Unicorns are still going to be pretty good. We're just trying to lower this threshold to the point that it's not broken. We're going to be reducing the impact that speed has on dodge a little bit as well. It's not just the speed burst, but also the chance to dodge gets really wonky when speed gets too high. So lowering that a little bit. The third major change is tweaking endurance a little bit. We're lowering the absorption rate from 0.1 to 0.09, a slight adjustment there. Kind of a preemptive one. We're seeing these crystal corns with really high endurance steadily increase kind of week to week, all things equal. And we need to be careful of that endurance limit. So this gives us a little bit more buffer there and is a bit preemptive. The last piece, which I hope a lot of y'all will be excited about, heard your feedback about some of the jousting reward structures. We've done a great job of incentivizing bronze and silver and making jousting more approachable, but the rewards have to come from somewhere. So we're adding a little bit more weight to gold. We're doubling the amount of Xi points that you get for golden gauntlet contributions. So we'll see how that feels for a week or two. This will definitely add more weight to gold, and you guys will be getting more Xi tokens for the same participation in Golden Gauntlet. And the aforementioned changes should hopefully get Silky Oliver and others in check at the very least, and we'll see where the dust settles. Overall, we've been really happy with jousting balance over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks. There's been pretty good class parity. There's been an acceptable amount of variance for the most part outside of the last 2 weeks. So trying to adjust things to accommodate for the rising total stats of unicorns as we continue pushing, without breaking the meta too much. So as always, we'll see how it goes this weekend. These changes will go live for this coming jousting weekend. We'll monitor, we'll hear your feedback, and if we need to make further adjustments in the weeks to come, we'll certainly do that. So keep an eye out for the What's New in CU, and then if you have specific questions or thoughts around it, LG Jeff will be there to help guide you through the decision making.
Fantastic. Okay, 2 more kind of major updates, and then we'll get to questions. First off, I guess in some disappointing news, the council voted unanimously to end our relationship with Team Surf on the Unicorn Party titles. It's clear, they were just unprepared to handle the launch and live operation needs of the project. There was a pretty significant contrast from kind of how we handle things versus them. And anyway, going forward, those games will be on the shelf as we look to evaluate new partners. I think gun to the head, today, I think Mob Run and Bumper Corns in particular would be great to leverage as Telegram games. If you're following that ecosystem, it's certainly popping off right now. It's driving a lot of growth to silly kind of clicker games, but obviously the simplicity of the game loops of both Mob Run and Bumper Corns being IO games very much, I think, fits with that trend. WebGL, HTML5, it shouldn't be impossible to get those games over there and use them again as another acquisition funnel. So for me, the dream that I had behind second and third party stuff still exists. Unicorn Party being this top of funnel way to expose our IP to new communities is still very much something that I want to push on. So again, we're going to be evaluating new partners going forward and taking all of the lessons that we've learned, certainly with the experience we've just had, and applying them to going forward. Okay. Core game roadmap. Obviously, a lot going on in that world as well. We're currently focused on the 4.x suite. What we mean by that is we're setting up releases and prioritizing features. And as those features are ready and get fully QA'd, we pop them out instead of trying to cram a bunch of features into releases, 90 days out. We're looking at more releases more frequently, and just getting our deployment pipeline smoothed out. So server-side analytics is on track for August, brings us the long-awaited solution to our leaderboard woes. Once out, we'll be launching a new Tribe v Tribe leaderboard, which I think everyone is going to love. It has this weekly matchmaking between tribes, with the winning tribe kind of progressing up the realm ladder and the losing tribe progressing down. And I think that's going to be very, very exciting, especially with the social tension, I will say, we experienced with the last leaderboard. It's really going to give tribes an opportunity to kind of go at each other, and sets us up for the Puzzle Battler and kind of everything that we're doing in the 5.x release suite. But again, really, really leaning heavily into the PvP nature of tribes, and y'all's desire to win and beat each other and talk shit. In addition to that, a number of polish elements kind of across the board. Updated collection modals, which have a really new, fun jackpot modal to help better celebrate that moment. Again, we take a look at like what is mostly shared by the community. It's jackpots, it's jousting wins, it's good breed or evos, right? And so on that front, trying to polish up those features in a way that adds more excitement and fun to those moments is going to be is a huge win. In addition to that, Tooltips V2, obviously, particularly for new players, this is going to help everyone understand, hey, I just got this new item, where do I use it? Or, hey, I need this item, where do I get it? So kind of simply there. It features a nesting feature, so you can kind of get all the information that you may need around what to do. And in addition, this will indicate level-based unlocks for buildings. So you start to understand what you get as you upgrade a building. Oh, you're getting these new access to crafting these new items as you upgrade the workshop. And again, this is all about looking at where players struggle in the funnel and trying to ensure that at every moment of the funnel, players don't have to necessarily go out to the Gitbook to get the information they need or come into Discord. It's just simply right there in the game natively. On top of this, we'll be doing a mail V2, which is giving us a lot of fun features to more granularly target and send out mail messages to players both new and old. A big one is also going to be Jousters can claim all of your mail messages in one click. And then lastly, kind of the capstone feature for the 4.x release suite is a player level and achievement system, which is going to give both new and old players this very clear path to progression with an ability to kind of publicly flex the achievements that you have earned within our game and within our ecosystem. We've seen this certainly work very, very well for Pixels. I mean, we are out there actively playing other top games in the space. And that's kind of the beauty of it. We can take things we've seen work well in other titles and put them into our experience. Well, everyone, that is a lot. I mean, we ate up 50 minutes just in updates. So excited to get to questions. Like I said, I mean, it's hard to speak to everything going on, but I can't express how excited I am about the future. I mean, particularly with the expectation of more favorable market conditions on the near horizon. Whew. I'm going to fill up a cup of coffee and I'm ready for questions.
All right. That was a lot. Thank you so much to Aron and Sayuri. There's a ton of news, a ton of updates, and I'm sure the community appreciates it. If anybody asks when marketing went burn, then I'm convinced you guys aren't just looking. Before we move forward with the questions, though, let's run by the rules really quickly. We have a limit of 3 questions per person. Since we had a lot to talk about, we can extend 15 minutes past the end of the hour, so let's make those questions good. We have anonymous questions, but we are deprioritizing them in favor of rewarding those who are asking interesting questions in the Town Hall number 58 thread, which we will link in a few. Are those brave enough to step up on the stage and ask a question in voice? To ask a question in voice, just press the request to speak button and we will take care of the rest. Now let me just go ahead and quickly link the thread. So here is where you can ask your questions. All right, let's get down to a written question. Some of the questions here have already been addressed. That's why I marked them with a check mark. Okay, we have one from SKMD. Are there any plans to publish buyback and burn numbers on a regular basis, like on a Dune dashboard?
Yes, 100%. That level of transparency is necessary. Right now, Dune has not integrated Xi. The Xi team is going through that onboarding program or onboarding flow. They've made it a lot easier for change to onboard, but then there is a queue and a bit of a wait time. So you will see us flip the switch on that live as soon as Dune support is official on the Xi front. Until then, you'll see it certainly in treasury reports and then obviously in social media posts and things of that nature. But getting the verifiability, we're going to have to wait on the Dune integration there. Of course, if anybody wants to look themselves, actually, I'm crazy. We're doing all this burn on Arbitrum, so yes, there will be a Dune dashboard. So expect that within the week.
All right. Okay, and here's the question that Yell asked earlier. Question for Aaron. Crypto Unicorn's treasury wallet has dropped to 1.45 M net worth. Is there a plan to capitalize so we can continue playing forever?
Yes, it's kind of two-pronged. One, obviously, with ETH price appreciation, the net value of the treasury increases. So you could see that very quickly go from 1.5 million to 3, 6, 9, 12 as the price of ETH moves upwards, right? That's the key point to make. We're not actually selling any of the ETH in the treasury. We're simply taking out debt against it. It is on us to obviously ensure we do not outpace the price appreciation of ETH. So again, if you're bullish on ETH in the next 6 months, which I would say you foundationally have to be if you're in crypto gaming, because if ETH does not go on a run, crypto gaming is not either. I mean, that's fundamentally what we've learned over the last few years in this market. And then on top of that, we have the Xi grant, obviously, which started landing last month. We literally get a daily drop of Xi over the next 3.5 years, basically, right? So we're getting Xi daily. Obviously, right now, we're distributing that to players and leveraging it as player acquisition dollars. But we're free and clear to use Xi, to, again, purchase ETH, put that ETH into the treasury to further capitalize it. So there's several options there. And, I'm not worried based on, both of those. So we're very, very fortunate to have such wonderful partners as Xi to have landed that deal when we did. And again, you've got to think about a scenario where obviously the market moves up, the price of Xi goes up, price of CU goes up, price of ETH goes up. The treasury goes from having what feels like a scary amount of runway to, effectively infinite, indefinite runway based on that. So I hope that clears up any potential confusion. Obviously, we've been very transparent talking with the counselors about the situation there, but between both ETH price appreciation and the ongoing Xi grant, there are no runway concerns.
All right, great to hear. Next up, we have a question by Prof. Do we have a plan to manage people botting in Rainbow Rumble or abusing the game system to extract heavily in case that happens? We saw these abuses with Bingo, and it would be great to avoid this.
I
Oh,
mean,
there
the
we go.
fact that,
Bryce just answered it. Bryce just answered it like
boom,
literally just right now.
Rice
What
is
is
on
the
top
plan?
of it. Rice is our executive producer on the Rainbow Rumble project here early California time and in the trenches.
What a queen.
Thank you, Rice.
All right, we have a question from Mellow Velo. First off, shout out to support. They do a good job with the support tickets. One support ticket and fixed topic is the leaderboards. Can you comment on the leaderboards in general, their quality of data, the amount of support tickets raised, and how this data is obtained? Understandably, data takes time to populate, but after a significant time, it seems that points are either not shown or they go missing again. Some
Yeah.
information on what goes on behind the scenes with their data could help players understand why this is a problem. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a great question. I feel like we've answered it many times, but it's good to go over again. To date, we use client-side analytics, which means when an event is triggered on the web client, the Unity web client, it fires an event through the web browser, right? And if you have a VPN, if you have a crummy internet connection, et cetera, right? Like the event, if you have a VPN, the event doesn't make it to our server, right? I mean, it's completely blocked by the client. So the biggest discrepancy we see is on people using VPNs or people on, kind of subpar internet connections, and it's plagued us forever, right? So what I mentioned earlier in server-side analytics means that when our server sees the event fire, it server to server sends the analytic event to our analytics database. And that eliminates the problems that we've had. So it doesn't matter if you're on a VPN or not. It doesn't matter if you're on a crummy internet connection or it cuts out. So that's one chunk of the problem solved. And I would say is about 80% of the support tickets that we've been having on it. And it's why we are not shipping the next leaderboard until the next release, which includes server-side analytics. So it's a major difference in how we're passing that data from server to server versus client to server. On top of that, there were a couple of issues where our on-chain data analytics partner had some issues with the Xi migration. Obviously, Xi is a much faster chain. It dumps a lot more data quicker than Polygon, almost an order of magnitude quicker in many ways, given the number of transactions per second on the network. Obviously, Xi has been one of the top L3 chains in terms of TPS, over the last month. So they had some scaling issues that they've now fixed. Obviously, they had to rewire every single event they track against all of our new contracts. So there were a few issues that have now been resolved there. And then there's a final piece, which I would say is the smallest chunk of issues that we've received. But occasionally our BI team, which ingests the data, miscalculates points. And that's a silly one that's easy to fix, both in better standards for that team and in particular enough QA time. So again, these are top of mind as a focus for us. We need leaderboards players trust because these leaderboards are distributing real world value. So a lot in the works, all top priority across those three avenues, and the combination of all three of those changes or upgrades will solve these leaderboard issues, hopefully once and for all.
All right. Somewhat related is this question by JBP3. Can we get a general update on the state of the blockchain fixes? Why is unlocking not working? Why is breeding and evolution having major issues?
There was a spike in those issues. Those have calmed down rather significantly. We do see, again, a little bit of an ongoing spike. It's down to the speed of Xi and how we basically post messages to the blockchain. And the simple answer is we're doing a major update we call Transaction Manager, which is just a better structure for how we pass a message to the chain. And this will unlock things like batch, unicorn, and land lock and unlock. And in addition, should once and for all solve the nursery issues that we've been having. So you can see certain problems occur when there's a spike in jousting ELO over the weekend, right? Because that writes to the chain, and then there's a breed mixed up in there, and it's the same system that's submitting all of those messages. If it falls a little bit behind, given the frequency of joust ELO updates during kind of max chaos of jousting weekends, you can see things get delayed where your nursery transaction doesn't get included quick enough and its time to live has expired, and then you have to re-roll, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, we've known for too long that we've used customer support tooling that we built to rapidly fix these issues as a bit of a crutch, and Transaction Manager, which is the second priority behind server-side analytics for us as a team, is kind of that silver bullet solution that, again, gives us kind of a host of improvements, everything from batch, airlock, or lock and unlock of unicorns and land, as well as just, should eliminate the nursery issues that we've seen.
All right. We have another question by Arts Rich. I realize it's a painful question, but I still think it's useful for players and investors to know. What is your plan in case of liquidation of the position in AAVE?
Obviously, we would switch from leveraging Zai's player acquisition dollars, right? And leverage the Zai that we're earning as operational expenses. So in a worst case scenario in which we take like a full liquidation, not a partial liquidation of the Aave position, we would huddle around the fire that is the Zai grant and continue forward. So that is the thing that gives me confidence in terms of the long-term potential for CU to be around again, indefinitely on startup terms. So obviously we can't control the market. The Middle East continues to bomb each other, which is terribly sad, and it's a bit of a mess. So again, in a worst case scenario in which the Treasury takes a hard liquidation, we take the remaining ETH and obviously, utilize it as best as possible, plus the Zai grant to keep the DAO and the DAO solvent and continuing forward on everything that we're kind of talking about here. It'll likely have consequences more so to Laguna because we would not be able to carry the size of the team that we have in that event. But again, we would look to do everything we can to ensure that that a kind of a team is kept in place that can continue pushing forward on everything that we're talking about here. So obviously that is an absolute worst case scenario. I think the more likely scenario is we see a run in the next 3 to 6 months, which will enable us to see the opposite of that question, which is the Treasury beginning to scale in value again. And, I'm a believer that the $7 million worth of ETH that we still have in the Treasury doubles or triples here in the next 3 to 6 months. And the Zai grant enables us the flexibility to kind of wait that period out. Anyway, I mean, it's a pretty bullish setup on that front. Great question to ask. I'm happy to address it and hopefully ease any concerns people might have relative to that.
Yeah, if I could just add real quick, I mean, obviously all this stuff has to do with a fairly complex risk reward profile. I agree. It's a really important question to bring up, especially when it's framed in a constructive way. I mean, thinking about our runway has a lot of implications for the project and how we maneuver things. The key takeaway is that we do have a lot of ripcords in general. There's a lot of potential paths if the kind of worst case happens, but it's hard for me to understate how effective this strategy has been overall for us as a company. I think Aron has done some pretty impressive stuff with this Treasury and able to leverage these new DeFi tools in a way that's just not really possible in the real world. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aron, but I don't think you could have been doing this 10 or 15 years ago, right? This tooling just didn't exist, and you don't really have access to it the same way with conventional rails. So definitely moments where it can be scary, and we're certainly placing a bet on this macro cycle coming into focus before too long here. But I can't imagine any other way to do it. At a certain point, you got to put yourself out there and bank on the broader markets having a moment. So I feel good about it, but totally understand why it's scary.
Yeah, and it's a good thing to talk about very openly, right? Because again, the Zai grant gives us the ability to continue topping up the Aave position with additional ETH, which raises the collateral, gets the health factor up. And so there's a lot of different mechanisms that we can use. Obviously, I chose for the first few months to distribute all of the Zai that we're getting out to the community, to the play to airdrop campaigns. We've obviously got a lot of it allocated for the Rainbow Rumble launch, associated leaderboards, some of the additional marketing pushes that we're doing. We're putting $250,000 in addition to all of that Zai on top of additional marketplace bundle purchases, et cetera. And so again, and that's the beauty of the system we've built compared to so many other game devs in the space, where I spend marketing dollars with my existing community to purchase bundles to give out to new players. And I mean, that's the beauty of the Zai node holder drop was the most successful drop we've ever done in terms of both conversion as well as HODL rate. I believe a 78% HODL rate, which is amazing on that front, and shows that as we continue to tune how we do those drops, how we execute them, and how we target, we're getting better and better and better over time. So many kind of bullish catalysts here, and I'm hoping that this conversation is really helping ease people's fears around the situation with the Treasury and obviously our future potential on that front. My primary goal is crypto unicorns surviving indefinitely, and we absolutely have a path to that.
All right. A slightly different question from Rambo Corn. If you could start all over again, would you still allow multi-accounting?
Yes, multi-accounting is a pretty natural thing in our game where people want more than 16 lands deployed, right? So that limit alone creates a viable reason for multi-accounting. So yes, I would still allow that. I think, as we see other groups and projects struggle with the idea of bots and things of this nature, I just kind of smile because it's something we've obviously been dealing with for years now. I think you have to accept, particularly for the fully on-chain games for certain, and even games that are more hybrids like us, you have to accept a certain level of multi-accounting. I think you need to embrace it. I think trying to fight it, as we're seeing with Pirate Nations, I don't think will work. You need to find ways to design economic systems that allow for it, right? And are going to actually scale with it and not necessarily fall apart as a result of it, which we've seen some projects in the space certainly do so. Obviously, our game has a very high barrier to entry, right? People have to kind of purchase assets before they can get tokens out of the system, right? And again, that represents a kind of a protective shield against the pure extraction that like multi-accounting can bring.
Definitely. Maybe this is too narrow-minded, but I see it as it's a trilemma where something kind of has to give. One option is you give up on an anonymity and say, hey, let's KYC everyone, right? That is a way to prevent multi-accounting in a pretty extreme but fairly effective way with a huge trade-off, right? We don't really want to do that. Number two is kind of take the past approach of Axie and what Pirate Nations is doing right now, where nobody has perfect data on multi-accounting. Some instances are a lot more egregious than others, but there's a lot of weirdly creative ways that you can make it a gray area. So I see that as just an awful cat and mouse game that, again, really amplifies the downsides of centralization, where you have this centralized force who is the gatekeeper and arbiter, sole judge and jury of who is multi-accounting and who isn't, and how come some people are allowed and some people aren't, and where you draw that line. That's fucking brutal. And I don't know that that's a winning combination. So the only thing that's left, at least in my mind, is you just have to kind of embrace it as a feature, not a bug, and we just have to design around it, accept that there's always going to be some degree of multi-accounting, and just embrace it. It's a little bit like the AI argument. What do we do with AI entering games? I think you embrace it or you get left behind. Those are kind of the only two paths. That's always how it's been when some giant game changer comes around, or AI ends up being a fad and doesn't have an effect on gaming, right? Again, those are kind of the only three real outcomes that I see. So it's a great, well-timed conversation. Aron and I were just talking about this yesterday, and it seems like we're fairly aligned that just swinging the band hammer in these gray area situations is not going to get us to where we want to be in scaling these kind of projects.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting research in the space generally. I mean, a shout out to Rolf, who is one of our advisors. He was recently on, and I believe is still an advisor to Lattice, which just shipped Sky Strife, which is a fully on-chain game based on the MUD engine. And he wrote a great article, recently, you can see on his Twitter, that discussed how they structured orb distribution and how you needed orbs to kick off matches. You were winning orbs for winning matches. And they structured it in such a way as to embrace the idea that when you have a fully on-chain game, somebody can very easily create a bot for that. And so you just embrace the fact that that will occur, and you set up a structure economically that basically would make botting negative EV in certain cases. And it's again, it wasn't a perfect system. And he talks about where certain things fell flat and certain things worked. But that, to me, is the area of research that the space really needs to push into, because it will just, the opposite path or the other path is an endless war against bots that you're going to lose, especially with the pace of AI development. So again, and this is why I focus so heavily on the economic systems and things behind these, because it is foundationally what will make these projects fly or die. And I'm excited to kind of see some of the, I shouldn't say it this way, but some of the struggles that the games that are a little newer to the market than we are having around this front. I'm seeing people make bad decisions there where they think they can fight that fight, and they're not thinking about, how do I create mechanism design that embraces bots but limits their power to be extractive. So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in the space we're watching very closely, and again, actually working with people like Roth, our advisor, on ways to structure our own mechanism design.
All right. We have 3 more questions. Are we good for those?
We can rapid fire them. Yeah, I got to bounce here in a few minutes to a PM meeting.
All right. Okay, let's do the Anon questions. Number 1, regarding low jousting liquidity, everyone blames the buff on potions, yet the update is about the speed nerf because of the top 1 unicorn. Why is this the case?
Yeah, so very quickly, there's sort of 2 issues that have been conflated together, so we're trying to tackle them one at a time. The potion change pushed some of these top unicorns over the threshold, so that triggered this quote unquote bug. I'm doing air quotes right now, where the formula started having some wonky outcomes. So the hope is that if we fix the formula issues, the potion change isn't nearly as impactful. I understand why everyone's saying the potion change broke jousting. That's indirectly from the potions. That's a numerical thing. If everything's working properly, that change to potions shouldn't have had that large of an effect, good or bad. Just in general, potions aren't used, in every joust matchup, that kind of thing. So goal is tackle the formula first, fix the quote unquote bug that has occurred, and then after that, we can actually assess, is this potion change good, bad, neutral? Hard to say when there's other bugs that have been introduced because of that numerical change. Hopefully that helps.
All right, question number 2. Hi, why do the CU market makers not create volume needed to get listed on tier 1 exchanges? Do we have a plan for that, or is it not a priority right now? Thank you.
I go back and forth on centralized exchange listings. In bear markets, the exchanges are incredibly extractive and unhelpful. Our exchange launches have not been helpful, right? And, we haven't had to pay exorbitant listing fees, but we're at the point where it's OKX, Bybit, Binance, right? And each one of those groups, again, during bear markets has more leverage over projects than they do during bulls. So as for volume in our market makers, like, again, we've got GSR, we have DWF, who are both large market makers inside of the space. There are certain rules, as you can imagine, on centralized exchanges in terms of what they can and cannot do. So they are certainly working within the bounds of those rules, is how I would answer that question. Exchange listings remain a priority for us, but in some ways we are slow rolling them to wait on more favorable market conditions. I will say Binance is kind of open call out for like legitimate projects after kind of some vaporware bullshit earlier this year launched, and those tokens performed horribly. Is, I think, a positive sign, right? Because they specifically asked for projects that have been live for long times with active communities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So again, we continue to look for avenues to list and expose the CU token to more participants. Obviously, that takes time, and to a certain extent, I can't pay $500,000 for a listing right now. So again, it's something that we are focused on and taking our time with. And to be clear, we have a number of meetings scheduled already for Token 2049 in September in Singapore. So again, it's a focus, but it's taking time. And that's why I think we're in the situation that we are currently, right? Ultimately, the DEX and the volume inside of the DEX and the liquidity of the DEX, like that's the center of gravity, center of mass for our entire token, right? And it's been nice to see DEX volume as a percentage of total volume in the space continue to hit. It recently hit all-time highs. DEXs are really a cancer on the space, let's just be clear. Their monopoly over the fiat on and off ramp is kind of gives them this outsized weight and power, but it's nice to see DEX listings continue to scale. And we've seen this with meme coins. So many of the meme coins are DEX only and have been phenomenally successful. So I think a lot of this idea that you need to be on centralized exchanges by default to be successful is actually being proven to be wrong based on a lot of the listings we've seen this year, and is actually a very mid-curve take on how you get something to be successful in this space. And so I would much rather be follow the meme coin path of no sex listings and see scale and activity on that front, than I would like bowing down to a sex and getting us into like a really, really shitty deal. So it's something we're approaching very cautiously and looking towards, how do we maximize the opportunity there? But I hope that context is helpful. I mean, this is just coming from a builder in the space who's spent years at this point talking